So with that in mind, let's extend that example and say, now we want to do this. We want to be able to write 5 euros in rupees, or in some other currency of our choice. So as a general approach, what would we want to do in order to make this happen? One possibility is we could say we could change numeric method missing, and we could detect calls to in and take a look at the arguments. That would be one way. Or so that's numeric.methodMissing. That's the class method. Or we could change the instance method, numeric method missing, to do that same thing. We could define a new method called in as an instance method of numeric. And by the way, by now you are getting used to the notation that numeric.methodMissing means method missing is a class method. Numeric hash method missing means it's an instance method. That's just Ruby notational convention. Or we could define a class method, numeric in. So which of these 4 is likely to be the most appropriate way to handle this kind of example? Let's take a vote. Voting. Finally I have a question that has caused some controversy. So talk about this one for a minute. Okay, let's try taking another vote. Ready, everybody? Ready, and voting time. Voting time. Okay, far from unanimous. There's red and blue have some support. Actually, I think almost every choice has some level of support. So let's see what's going on here. This is a good one to talk through. Okay, so let's go through these choices. First of all, just by the fact that when we called 5.euros, what kind of a method is euros, instance or class? It's an instance method, right? We're calling it on an instance of fixnum. And remember how we defined the method? All it does is multiply the number by something. So what kind of thing do we get back from the euros method? Also a fixnum, okay? So if we want to be able to call in rupees, for example, on the result of this, in is also going to have to, at some level, be an instance method, right? That much we can agree on. So answers that are defining any kind of a class method probably are barking up the wrong tree here. What about, okay, so it's not a class method. Well, what about this? What about modifying the method missing like we did before? That was defined as an instance method, right? It gets called if an instance of the object is unable to respond to something. So could we augment method missing to handle calls to in? Yes, we could. Is it a good idea? Not necessarily, right? Because in the previous example, the motivation for things like doing currencies is it gives us a general way to handle a lot of different method calls that really all do the same thing. They're just multiplying something by a number. So it's much more compact. Instead of defining 20 methods for 20 different currencies, we just use method missing to handle it in a much more compact way. But this is a much simpler thing we're trying to do. We're just trying to define one new method called in that is sent to a fixnum and will cause the conversion to happen in ways that we haven't determined yet. So defining an instance method called in is the simplest solution to this problem. The method missing solution would work, but it would be like killing ants with a sledgehammer. You don't need metaprogramming to solve this problem. This is just a plain old function call. So part of the reason to have this exercise in here is, again, just because you have these powerful mechanisms available doesn't mean you always have to use them. In fact, you should do the simplest thing that could possibly work. Remember, that's one of the mottos of extreme programming. And in this case, a plain old instance method will do absolutely fine. Any questions about that before we move on?